So, without much ado, let me get into the topic straight away. Today, we are speaking on the spirituality of work and defining what God has called us to do in the workplace, truly from a Christian perspective. So, today, in the context of the corporate world and what happens in the corporate world and how it is defined, I believe that some of the definitions of work are shaped by some lopsided secular views of what work really is. And today, I hope to give you a true perspective of what work should be, especially for us Christians, as we embark on our day-to-day work. And as I share this presentation and give you a biblical basis for it, I also want to tell you that it's going to reflect part of my own journey, which is divided into two halves. The first half is prior to May 10th, year 2000, and the second half is post May 10th. So you might wonder what's significant of this date, May 10th. But May 10th is the day that I was born again, so to speak, in Pota, where I received this special anointing. And my life has changed tremendously since that day. So technically speaking, I'm actually a Christian for the last 23 years. So the lives before the time before the May 10th, of course, was a formative year. It was the Lord was building me up. I wasn't aware of what I was doing and why I was doing what I was doing. But God has His own plans, and in His own ways, He ministers to us and prepares us for bigger things in life. So I'll be drawing from these two experiences as I have brought this out. And we shall now give you an overview of what you can expect. I've broken the presentation into three parts: A, B, and C. A, we look at the worldview of work. What does the secular world say about work? And then we look at the Christian aspect of work. And then the third part, I will integrate all of this into my own life experience to share through an example what really is the gospel of work. So, what do the corporate gurus say? In the secular world, we have been framed to think of work very differently. And over the years, many people have come and spoken different ideas into our minds about what work is. But generally, if I have to classify three areas, is we either live to work, that is the workaholic way, where everything is work. The family don't exist, life doesn't exist, hobbies don't exist, just work, work, and work. And the second idea is that it's the Epicurean way. We live to work. We make money, we work hard, and we party harder. And that's one way of looking at work. We earn for this life that we want to live. So we make a beeline to the club on the weekends or wherever we are, and where we have a good time, and that's all we do. And then, of course, gurus come and tell us, okay, yes, let's have a work-life balance. Now, all these concepts, on the surface of it, they seem very good and they sound interesting. But even work-life balance has an issue. Because, when you want to place a special emphasis on something, you cannot, I cannot, serve two masters, so to speak. And I cannot say that, okay, yes, I will do something on this task, and I will proportionally do something at this task at the same time. It's difficult to balance it. I've got to give my heart and soul into something, and then it's a compromise on the other aspect. So there is an element of issue with work-life balance, but I don't want to get into that because that's a subject by itself. Okay, and then there's this idea called liquid modernity. I don't know if any of you are aware of this term, liquid modernity. It was coined by a social scientist about 2 decades ago, and it's very relevant even today. Okay. Liquid modernity, just to bring you give you a nutshell definition of what it is. It is something that was coined by a social scientist by the name of Zygmunt Bauman, and he said that our social condition is characterized by instability, uncertainty, and constant change. That's what he said. And as a result of it is, there is no traditional structures don't exist. Identities dissolve. And all of this is shaping our worldviews today. And if you look at our modern lives, it's so fast paced, technology is changing so fast, it's so difficult to keep up with this life. If you look at social media, everyone's behind, mask. Our identities have dissolved. Post pandemic, our traditional structures have dissolved. We have new ways of doing business, and things are very fast paced. And what's happened is what he says, he said it 2 decades ago, but I believe it's still relevant today in our today's world. So he said that, what all this does to us is that it leaves us disconnected, it leaves us fragmented in our identities. There's a lack of genuine bonds in this world today. Okay, everything has dissolved. The structures have all dissolved, and there is a certain uncertainty, and it finally leaves our individuals disconnected and adrift. And if you look at today's modern world, that's how they are working. I mean, carrying on their lives. So, yeah. So there are two things basically that impact this world according to the secular world. One is the culture of calculation. Now, what is this culture of calculation? It is nothing but what is called as CBA, or cost benefit analysis. In the business world, we always look at what do we put into our business and what do we get out of our business? What's the profit? What's the input and what's the output? Okay. And in boardrooms, executive decisions are based on a cost benefit analysis. What's it going to be? What's our effort and what's going to be the result of it? And everything that we weigh, everything in the corporate world, even the work, even when today a person gets into work, he's calculating, okay, this job requires me to put in so many hours. And if I put in so many hours, what's going to be the benefits for me? What's going to be my salary? What's going to be my other benefits? So everything is weighed on a basis of cost benefit. And that's how our world is calculated. But, this subject itself can go into another talk by itself, but I don't want to dwell more on that. But not everything can be viewed on a basis of cost benefit analysis. Okay? So, for example, let's say when we look at married couples and they look at children, you can't look at children being born into this world through a cost benefit analysis. You can't say, okay, we will give birth to this child and we will put in so much on this child, and we will get so much out of this child, and we just have to do it selflessly, working and working for them and for their welfare, not looking at what are the costs at the benefits as well. So there are costs, but we don't look at the benefits. Even marriage, when you look at marriage, a friend of mine from the north of India who I met 10 years ago, he was sharing with me about 3-4 years ago as to why he was a successful businessman. And he kind of refrained from getting married. And then when I asked him, I said, why? You've got such a good job, everything going well for you. And then he told me, he said, see, look at the world today and look at marriage. He says, you put in so much, but what do you get out of it? It's not worth putting in so much of effort for the kind of, unhappiness and dissatisfaction that surrounds this particular vocation of marriage. And that's why I didn't get into it. Because why? He looked at it as a cost benefit. Okay. And that's another subject of marriage, cannot be looked at as a cost benefit. But that's our culture today. Everything is based on a cost benefit. So even when we look at work, I believe we will have opportunities in the future at GIC to dwell a little more on this, because We look at work sometimes also through that lens, but it's a faulty way of looking at it, if you're looking long term. The second thing that has impacted our world is the culture of conformity. Okay, and this you will know. Just go to the next slide, Diavlin. The next one. Yeah. So the culture of conformity, we there is something called as mimetic desires. Okay. René Girard is a French social scientist who said that we don't have any innate abilities. We desire things through imitation. Okay, and if you look at what he's saying in the world, many things are driven by imitation. All our desires are developed through imitation. They're not innate. Our desires are not innate and built in. They all form through imitation. Okay, so if you look at fashion. Okay, tomorrow, let's say when Lady Gaga came out with those outrageous costumes, young girls saw those costumes and then said, that's the one I want to wear. So they imitated that, and over a time, many people imitated that, and then that became the trend. And if you look at any of the trends today, that online trends, they are built and based on imitation, and that's what they call as mimetic desire. So when you constantly imitate something, then you begin to desire what that something represents, and then you fail to truly desire something of your very own. Okay, and that's true also with the workplace, because when you see, I in my life, still remaining in the earlier half of my life. Initially, when I looked at my work, I used to work with a company called Ogilvy and Mather. It's an advertising firm. But when I looked at all the executives in that firm, and I said, okay, I want to be like them. I want to imbibe that culture. It all looked glamorous and looked fun, and it looked a great way of living. And I said, no, I want to be like that account director. I want to work towards, becoming his kind of persona. And a lot of my behavior changed. My desires changed. My desires began to mimic. I was mimicking him, and I began to, clone those advertising kind of lifestyles. This was prior to my coming to know Jesus in my personal relationship. So they have some benefits, but they also have some setbacks. They have some issues. So sometimes it's good to have a good role model, and if you mimic that role model, you begin to get better. But in this culture of conformity, what we begin to lack is our own development of our own true desires, what we truly want. Even in a boardroom, you see people, executives making decisions. Senior executives make decisions, and they suggest a way forward. Now, young managers and young execs who work around that senior executive just wrap they accept that idea just as it is, just because they want to mimic that kind of leadership, and they don't begin to contribute genuine ideas of their own, and they begin to shape their ideas on that basis of what that senior corporate executive has think. And that's how the world has been shaped. There's no genuine ideas coming out. There are no genuine thought processes that are leading to good challenges and good confrontations of individual genuine ideas. And that's what the world of the culture of conformity is. All this has shaped the way we look at work. I'm giving you this background so that you understand what I'm trying to share with you in terms of what shapes our lives in the workplace. Okay, so let's look at some of the definitions of work. The Merriam's dictionary says to carry through a task requiring sustained effort and repeated operations. To perform work for not wages, for wages. The Collins Dictionary says people who have a job usually are the ones they are paid to do. Now, if you look at these definitions, there are many more definitions. I have not pulled them up, but they all kind of conjure an image of drudgery, an image of a task oriented. When you say task, a task seems burdensome, right? If you look at the job as a task, that's a drudgery, and That's how our modern world defines work. So I just wanted to bring this up for you just to give you a perspective of how we are beginning, how this culture has, led us to believe that this is what work is all about. Okay, but it's not necessarily what it is supposed to be. So let's look now into the next section, the biblical perspective of work. And I'd like to take you through the book of Genesis in chapter 3, verse 17. I'll read it for you from my phone. And to Adam he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles I shall bring forth to you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. You are dust, and to dust you shall return. Now, this is a biblical perspective of something that you might tell me that this sounds like drudgery. What the Lord is telling us, that this is drudgery, work is drudgery. He says you will have to toil, you have to, by the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, and you'll have to toil for your work. Okay, but this is the fall, right? You're all familiar with the fall. But what actually happened was the definition of work from a biblical perspective came prior to this. Okay, it was much before this, and I wanted to read from you Genesis chapter 2. This is from 3:17 that I read to you, but let me take you to Genesis chapter 2. Go back to Genesis 2, verses 1. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God finished his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and allowed it, because of it God rested from all his work which he had done in creation. Okay. This is an idea being presented to you as to what really work is. God rested from all his work. And if you go to verse 15, the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to till it and keep it. Okay? So this is a framework of what God is really calling us to do through the work of our hands, which is created work. He created the whole world and he rested, is what chapter 2 says. But what we read in the first account was from chapter 3, verse 17, which is much later. Okay? So the true intention of work was that it was a gift. It was not a punishment. Okay? But post the fall, it became a punishment, it looked like. So the true intention of work in our lives is that work is a gift. It's a created work of God. And God has made us in his image. He has made us in his image. And he has created us in his image. And in his image, we are to, conduct ourselves. So what did he do? He created the whole universe. And in his image, we are called to continue that work of creation. Continue the work of creation on a continuous basis. We create stuff. Okay? And that creating process is called work. Okay? So that's how we are created in his image. And we continue this great work even till today. Now, in a perspective of, we meet people, we collaborate with each other, and then we produce value for the world. Okay? This value is created value through human enterprise. And through human enterprise, each one of us contribute in our own ways to create value, true value in this work. Okay, but the fact that corporations have misused this collaboration, this human enterprise, and for the sake of profit, everything has been distorted. And that's again reflecting, fractured nature. So, but genuinely and originally, we are all intended to create value through collaboration, human collaboration. And that all of that is the gift that God has given each one of us in the area of work. So, we now look at the Christian view of work, and I want to share a small anecdote from uh, uh, this guy called Andreas Widmer. He wrote a book called The Pope and the CEO. Okay, Andreas Widmer, in fact, some of his stuff I have pulled from his book as well, which reflects my faith journey. And Andreas was a Swiss guard. As you can see, the Swiss guards were there to, defend the Pope. And this guy, Andreas, one day he encountered John Paul II. But, he was very disillusioned in his life. And he was very sad one day and not ready to work after a couple of years of working as a Swiss guard. And then his boss told him, listen, you're going to be posted at the main entrance where the Pope is going to exit. So he said, oh God, I'm not prepared to do this. I'm not prepared to do this. I'm feeling really down. But he was sent there to open the doors. And so anyway, he opened the doors when the exit happened at the appointed time. And John Paul II walked out. And he just turned and looked at Andreas. And immediately he picked up that Andreas was upset. And I said, young lad, what's happened to you? You look upset. And what's the problem? In his Polish accent, he said. And this young guy was, so overwhelmed that Andreas, he just broke down. And he said, oh, it is Christmas time. So I think you are missing home. And, he immediately knew that something was wrong with this young gentleman. And then he knew that he was disillusioned in some way, and that was reflecting in his demeanor. So he just came up to him, he left the main path and came up to him and said, I will pray for you. Okay? And just that simple action of praying for you and touched Andreas Widmer, and it transformed his life, he says. And he began to look at John Paul and say, listen, I want to be like him. And many years later, he met this young American girl and got married to her. And he decided to leave the Swiss guard and then go back to America and start a new life. So he went to meet John Paul. He called him to his office and he said, he wished him all the best and all that stuff. But he told Andreas Widmer one thing. He said, it is not I you want to be, but it is you want to have what I have. Okay. So basically what he was saying was that initially Andreas Widmer was, wonderstruck by the personality of John Paul II, and he wanted to be like him, charismatic and joyful. But what he really missed was that John Paul had the Spirit of God in him. He had Jesus with him. And that was what he was looking at. Today when we look at executives, we're not looking at what they look like and how they behave, but what they have. And if they have Jesus, and there's nothing like having Jesus, and that's what the Pope told Andreas Widmer, and that stuck with him, and he went on following John Paul II, and he began to read from his encyclical, which is the dignity of labor, and I'm going to share with you two aspects of work from that encyclical called the Dignity of Labor, which Andreas Widmer has shared. So what he said was, work is basically, he says that there are two aspects. The first aspect is that what we do on the outside, okay? What we do on the outside, what the products we make, the services we provide, the solutions we develop, the technologies we invent, all this is on the outside of what we do. Okay? And what's on the inside is the act of working and what the act of working does to each one of us. Okay? And he said that it gives each one the opportunity to evolve. He gives each one the opportunity to rise to his potential, his created potential. Okay? And we can begin to exercise the virtues of patience, diligence, fortitude. All of these things build us up. Now, when I was growing up, as I told you that post 10th May experience, I always I never knew the God was working within me, but He was developing me in His own way, with me, being oblivious to the fact that I was being worked upon. So, for example, when I joined this company called Bradma, which was part of the Forbes Campbell Group, it was a sales job, and in sales, the function of sales. I was in the office automation division, selling office equipment, banking equipment, but in the process of joining this company, I learned the art of uh, serving certain client needs and developing a sales portfolio. And unknowingly, I was empathetic towards the customers' needs, and therefore I was able to sell to them. Today, when we sell with a different mindset. And sales is all about looking and uncovering needs and meeting those needs. And I was doing that very, I didn't know what was happening in my life, but I was doing it naturally because I was serving others. And in the process, it helped me to build my virtues of patience and diligence and fortitude and all of that. But I truly believe that even though I did not come to know the Lord at that time, I was being developed slowly in the process. Okay, but that's what work does on the inside to each one of us when we begin our careers and as we grow through, go up the corporate ladder. So uh, in this process, we begin to understand who we are. We begin to make sense of what work we are doing. If we do it consciously, knowing that this is the framework of what we are created for, then we can take this into the next level. So we come to the next slide, which is what is that one thread that defines who I am? Okay, we this thread is an unrepeatable call. It's a call that governs what I do. It is not about the person, it's not about the work that I do, but who I am in that work what I do. Okay. So Father Herbert Alfonso, he said that personal vocation is the one thing we do all the time. Okay, he was one of the disciples of John Paul II, and he followed his dignity of labor, and that's where he came from. It becomes the organizing principle of our life. If we're able to identify thread, that one thread we will carry through all our tasks, all our jobs, all our assignments, and not just in company A, but whether it's company B, C, or D, wherever we go, we carry that one thread right through. And that's the idea that I'm going to share with you, that we carry that idea through. And I will share more about this idea from my personal life as we go forward in the presentation. But that becomes the organizing principle of life. Okay. Pope Benedict said that every person carries within himself a project of God. Okay, and it is this project of God that in history we are required to fulfill, which ultimately builds the church or the kingdom. So our personal vocation is rooted in who we are, not what we do. Okay. Very often in a social context, when we meet at a conference or at a party, hey, hi, how are you? I'm Adrian. What do you do? That's the first question we ask, right? What do we do? Because that defines us, what we do. And that's how the culture has, kind of developed. But it's not what we do, but who we are. And very rarely do people go into who they want to know who you are. They want to know what you do, because what you do defines who you are. And that's a faulty way of looking at our life. How are we doing for time, Greg?
Lucky we've got 10, 15.
10, 15 minutes more? Okay, fine. So, what I've basically covered the framework of, what the world view of work is, and what the Christian view is, the biblical framework, to give you a perspective of who we are. But what does this mean in our real life? Okay, how does it pan out in the way we live out our lives? So this is the final part of my presentation, that how do we integrate all these ideas into the actual workplace? What does it mean? What do these concepts mean? This, I've just given you concepts and frameworks. Okay, so and this integration will be from the my own life. Just to give you an example. Now, when we say, like, some of you might have a question in what is this personal thread? You know, what's the theory of this personal thread, and how does it pan out in our work lives? Okay, so I put this down into a slide to illustrate the personal thread. Okay, this is from my own experience of where I journeyed from where I was in my post May experience of 2000 to where I am today. Okay, now if I look at this personal thread, we have service, and that's the personal thread that I'm talking about, that I figured out in my life. And I look back and I look now and I see this element. So, the thread of service, as Christians, a common thread that defines who we are and transcends, specific job roles or career paths. Okay, is the call to serve others. The innate call is to serve others. Love neighbor, love God, and love neighbor. We are in service, constant service to others. And that, when I look at my own development and my desire to serve others, in work, that principle of service is the thread of service is the one that I have taken through, and I've developed it is developed in me very automatically. Now, this may manifest in different ways. Okay, we look at the different ways they manifest. This thread of service that I talked about, that God placed in my heart, that I unconsciously worked through the first half of my life, and I'm working now also, is this. Now let's look at compassion. Okay, how does it pan out for compassion? So demonstrating compassion and empathy towards colleagues, clients, or customers, irrespective of the specific tasks we are assigned. Okay, in my role, as I figured out when I was working in those days in Bradma, in my sales days, my empathy towards my customers and my clients, helped me actually advance and build my sales portfolio and become very, very successful. I never knew it at that time, but that's how that thread was building itself within me. Okay, and this compassion is a reflection, a manifestation of that service. Okay. If you look now, take it a notch up above in teamwork. Okay, how does it pan out in teamwork? Okay, he says so. Valuing teamwork and collaboration. It's all about within the company in Bradma itself. I was able to, in the second half of my career there, I got a promotion, and I began to develop a team, and automatically I was fostering that my service was being reflected through knowledge sharing of what I picked up over the years, and team success and team motivation. It was all about that kind of service that I was dishing out to my colleagues, and it was being developed even at the time that was prior to my really encountering Jesus. Okay, and then of course we another next manifestation in leadership. How does it pan out in leadership? Okay, as we progress in our careers, we can become leaders and mentors. Most of you have become leaders and mentors in your own way, and you begin to look at others, and how do I mentor this junior who's entered the workspace? How can I help him out? How can I serve him? And how can I guide him? And how can I support my colleagues? And then you take up a larger role, and that's again a manifestation of service through leadership. Okay, and I had the opportunity of doing that in some very senior roles as I grew. I left Bradma and joined another company, and as I grew, I got senior positions, and I was able to manifest this thread of service. And I took this thread of service along with me into that space. Right. Another manifestation is ethical conduct. Okay. Now this is a little tricky one. It is, it is about upholding ethical principles and integrity. How do we live our lives and serve others through honest practices? Okay, how do I, serve others through being just? How do I work with transparency in the organization? How do I work with transparency with my clients, with my customers? How do I demonstrate that ethical side of this company and what it reflects? Now, that's a manifestation of the service thread that we carry, and that's what's the constant thing that we keep growing. But unfortunately, sometimes I don't want to share names here. But my next assignment was a senior position in a company, and I had the chance of, bringing out very naturally this ethical side of me in service. But it didn't go down well. The situation was like this. I was a very senior person. In fact, I was hired at the topmost level in that company, and I was working with the managing director directly. And he was eyeing a particular client in Gurgaon, in Delhi. And the client's name was, I don't want to take names of individuals, but I can tell you it's a multinational corporation. The company's name was Canon. And they they had a 5 crore budget for marketing and sales in those days, and we were gunning for that account. And my managing director, mind you, a Christian, okay, mind you, a person who flaunted his Christian values, but he was desperate to make it big. He was desperate to get the big accounts, and he wanted me to drive those initiatives. And he told me, he said, Adrian, we have to get this account. But what I heard was that there is a senior executive in this company who takes a kickback. Okay, so it involves about 20 lakhs. If we're able to give him this 20 lakhs, we'll get a 3 crore advertising budget for this from this client. It's big money, and I think and it's a very prestigious brand to have on our portfolio. Let's go for it. And I sat him down in his office, and I was talking to him, telling him that, listen, I don't think we should go down this route. I don't think this is a good practice to do. I said, if we have strengths, if we have an all India setup, and we can, win this client through our own merits, the merits of what your company is set up to do. He said, no. I said, this guy is a corrupt guy, and he wants that money. And if we don't get this money, no way somebody else in Delhi will, take this account. Our competitor will take the account. And I began to think about it and pray about it. And this is my second half of my journey when I came to know the Lord. So it deeply upsetted me. It upsetted me because I could not toe the line here. I had to stop because I reflected there's something else in me that said, no, you cannot do this. And I finally, it was a top job, earning a top salary, but I had to go up to him and tell him, I said, I can't do this. And he was very upset with me. He didn't show it initially. He tried to convince me, and I said no. Finally, he went through it. I said, if you this money has to change hands, it won't be changed through my hands. I'd rather pitch for this business and win it the proper way. So we both went to Gurgaon one day, and in the basement of a complex where this company was based at, 10 lakhs in a suitcase was given in hard cash in front of me. It really upset me. But I think from that moment onwards, things didn't work the way it had for me in that company. And if you look at this thread, there's a downward spiral of this thread. And I put it creatively like that because from that moment onwards, I was not matching up with their practices, their best practices. Okay, and ultimately, I decided to leave this organization. Okay, as I said, I will not take names, but sometimes sometimes some of our Christian values in the workplace, when we begin to live them out, they have challenges. They are faced with challenges, and we have to face them. And if you have to be genuine practitioners of what God is calling us to do in the marketplace, we do that. But I believe that the Lord, in His own plan, will take you through that journey and take you other places. Okay, so that began my journey as a consultant, marketing and brand consultant, and I found truly what that common thread of service was to help others. So my mantra was that in the workplace, in my consulting practice also was, how can I make the best, make my clients make better versions of themselves? Okay. So ever since then, my mantra has been, how can I make you the better version of yourself? Whether it's an individual or whether it's a company or a business enterprise, what inputs can I give you in service that will help you become the better person that you are? And that's carrying me through, and it's going to take me to my next project that I'm planning, which is a personal project on purpose culture development in the youth. Okay. And that's all about, again, serving the youth in terms of how to make them better versions of themselves. And that's, if you look at the thread, it's looking upward, and I believe that the Lord has some plans for me there. And this is my personal journey of that one thread that we can take. The one project, every person carries within himself a project of God, Pope Benedict's quote. And I believe that each one of us can find that one thread and carry that thread consciously. When we carry it consciously, then the Lord allows that to manifest more powerfully in our lives. Okay? And even though it's rather at the fag end of my career, but I'm open to the Lord working in me and manifesting that one thread. Thank you.